안녕하세요. Yo.
Welcome to the Kdrama Show. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kim.
We're here to unpack your all-time favorite Korean dramas and chat about all the reasons that we find these shows so charming.
And so addictive. And we know you do too, so settle in with some ramen and a boba tea while we dive into the Kdrama Show with Ashley and Kim.
I know that being on camera now is like freaking me out a little bit.
I feel extremely uncomfortable, but I'm trying to mask it by eating things right now.
Just take a drink of water. Coffee.
Chris is like, are you sure you want to put your face out there? Because once you do that, there's no going back. And I was like, well, now I'm not sure.
Thanks for freaking me out more.
And also, it's kind of too late because we already did our 100-day video. So,
holy smokes.
All right, algorithm. I hope you like faces because this is kind of the whole reason we're doing this.
We're doing it, and we're trying not to look at our cameras because...
No regrets. Not
Not
even
one
letter. All right.
We are back with Goblin.
Back with Goblin. It is Kdrama Show with Ashley and Kim.
Hey.
That's Ashley.
That's Kim. Look at the camera for that one. I couldn't help it. I gotta... Gonna cringe at this later. It's fine.
This may or may not wind up with video eventually, depending on how painful it is for us to watch this.
Oh.
Are you...
You want me to do the tea?
Yeah, are you going to kick us off with
I'll
Ashley
do some
tea?
Ashley tea. So, if you've listened to season 1 of the Kdrama Show and any of our What's Wrong with Secretary Kim episodes, if you haven't, go do that because they're great. But if you don't know, I'm a huge BTS fan. I am full ARMY. And I want to say it was maybe episode 5 to 8 for like timeline. I had shared that there was lawsuits going on from Big Hit Music, from people who were impersonating the artists who had done pre-releases of their songs, like trying to like stalk them. Like there was just a lot going on. So this morning, you know, because Kim and I stay awake till 2 o'clock in the morning talking to each other over.
It's a problem.
But I got a notification and there was updates on all of this craziness that's going on.
Ooh, let's hear it.
And so part of it says, during this quarter, we filed multiple criminal complaints with law enforcement agencies based on evidence related to acts infringing on the rights of the artists, including defamation submitted by our fans as well as collected through our own monitoring. Now, the fact that like their own fans are spreading defamation, you're not a fan then.
Yeah.
If you're just going to say.
You're an auntie.
Yeah. In the previous notice mentioned, an individual who impersonated a BTS member and leaked unreleased music. The individual was arrested and indicted under additional criminal charges for this matter, and they tried to express like the intention of apologizing. Yeah. And they were like, we made it clear that we won't agree to a settlement. As a result, an additional prison sentence has been imposed on top of the existing sentence. We will continue to take strong legal action against blatant criminal acts such as impersonating members, collecting and leaking undisclosed information, even if it takes time. And like what's unfortunate about all of this is all of the members are in the military right now. So whether they know about this or not,
I'm sure they have to.
They have to at least be informed, but they can't make a statement, they can't do whatever, which they shouldn't have to. So there was a lengthy investigation that had started in 2022 with the authors of numerous slanders, comments, vulgar postings with the intent to ridicule the artist.
2022?
This is when this started. Like,
wow.
When the investigation started. My goodness, words. And so all of these people have been found guilty by the court and sentenced of fines up to several million won.
Ooh.
So,
which I mean is thousands in US dollars, but that's still hefty.
A lot of money.
I mean, I don't have just thousands laying around.
But it was like, you know, Big Hit Music regularly collects information on malicious postings regarding BTS, reports them to the authorities, and takes legal action. And we will continue to do so without interruption even while the members are fulfilling their military service. We will continue to adhere to strict measures and our policy of no settlement and no leniency to hold suspects accountable. We ask that you make continued use of our legal affairs hotline to report any cases of abuse. And we're always grateful for the affection and dedication shown by fans of BTS. Big Hit Music will continue to work to ensure that the rights of our artists are fully protected.
No leniency, no settlement.
Like, you know what?
Dang.
go off. I frankly don't blame you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, yeah. So
I wish everyday people had that kind of protection sometimes.
Yeah. But, like, when you have that big, first of all, that big of a name and that big of a company, you don't want to mess with them because this is what will happen.
Well, if those guys lose enough income, that's multiple livelihoods lost. It's not just those 7 guys. I mean, it's a whole
There's producers and choreographers and stylists and makeup artists and managers and
interviewers and things like that. Other people depend on their
and
publicity.
There's other groups that are from Big Hit Music.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was it TXT?
Yep. Tomorrow by Together.
There are a lot of names.
In hyphen.
So yeah, that is several months later from that very first time that I said, hey, these lawsuits are happening. But just the fact that it is zero leniency or tolerance, I don't know why people continue to do so.
It's kind of brave, kind of stupid.
More stupid than brave.
A little more stupid than brave. Just don't say stupid things.
Or maybe, get your own life and stay off the internet.
Except for to listen to podcasts.
Like ours, please. You want to catch us up from last time, or do you got something else?
Do my darndest. Something very tragic happened with my notes.
We almost cried and almost went home for the day.
We're already in my home, so.
Well.
I just would have stomped up to my room and been like,
I'm done.
So, episode 4. Last time, we found out that EunTak could not only see the sword, but she saw the sword from day 1, which kind of knocked my socks off a little bit. I was a little bit surprised about that. She asks if she's Goblin's bride, and he doesn't really know what to say, but he basically says, I'm leaving, so I don't know if it really matters anyway. Goblin he has this decision to make whether or not he's going to tell her what it actually means to remove the sword, and he kind of wrestles with it the entire episode. But EunTak is really just interested in trying to improve her own personal situation, which I don't blame her, because her aunt is little bit psycho.
The worst.
Abusive, not a kind person. And so she asks to move in with him until she graduates high school. But Reaper.
Again.
The Goblin asks if he can take option 2 and give her the $5,000 and walk away. And she's like, I have seen your lifestyle. No. I'm going to need a little bit more from you. And so EunTak actually ends up moving into the hotel where DeokHwa lives in I think Shin, he owns it, right? He's the CEO of this hotel?
Yeah,
or it's
he's
part
one
of
the
his
part of the conglomerate.
Yeah. So DeokHwa is kind of charged with taking care of her, making sure all of her needs are met, which he's not a fan of, but he really wants to get his cards back. So he's like, all right, let's do it. And so DeokHwa goes to complain about this to Goblin and finds Goblin self-medicating some of his anxieties. And then Reaper also self-medicates some of his anxieties because of their relationship woes. DeokHwa realizes that the girl that he was doing recon on was actually EunTak. And he takes her to school one day. It generates a lot of buzz around the school because they're like, she's getting dropped off by another sugar daddy. What is her deal? Which, honestly, I mean, it would be a very strange occurrence for somebody that rich to drop off somebody like EunTak, who's basically a social outcast at this point. So I get the questions, but they are jerks to her.
Well, and that's the first time she's been dropped off by anybody.
Yeah,
and
she
it was
doesn't
the
have
one
family.
Girl. It was the one girl that had seen her walking with Goblin that was like, oh my gosh, she's dating some man in his
So rumors
30s.
Are flying. But EunTak's aunt and her cousins actually go to have this bar appraised and get the cops called on them, which were just like... And they're accused of actually stealing these gold bars from the National Treasury in New York City, which obviously they did not do. So there was a little bit of Goblin magic going on there. Reaper is asked by Goblin if he can do him a favor and perform an international reaping, essentially. And Goblin goes and meets with this man, and we find out that it's actually the little boy from episode 1 that he had helped out of an abusive situation back in Paris.
Right.
And we find out that he gets to cross over into like paradise, which is the first time we've actually seen this happen, I think.
Yeah. We've just seen people
In
drink
the
the tea.
Yeah, people have drunk the Oblivion tea.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think we've seen one person be
Told what his...
condemned.
Yeah.
Like,
this is what's going to happen to you because of your...
yeah, you're a bad person. But this is the first
actions.
time we've seen someone be granted access to the afterlife. As this is all happening, EunTak is like beside herself. She's been ignored by Goblin for days, essentially, when he told her, you know, just wait a second. And then it's been several days since he's even spoken to her. So she calls him to her room and threatens him with like this wall of candles that says, if you try to leave, I'm just going to keep summoning you over and over again.
So go for it.
Yeah, go for it. But he offers to take her out to eat. They have a convenience store meal. He ends up getting tanked.
Off of one can.
Off of one can. And he kind of starts to give some details about the situation. He's a little more vulnerable at this point, and she starts to ask him questions, and he thinks about coming clean and telling her what's going to happen, and then he decides at the last minute, like, no, I'm not going to put that on her. Removing the sword is going to make me pretty. And so that's what she believes now, is that removing the sword is going to make her pretty, or make him pretty. And she changes the subject and says, so when you're sad, it rains. Does what happens when you're happy? Do flowers like bloom or something? Which we find out is true. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gives a little bit more insight to who Goblin is, as far as the day that EunTak was actually born, when there was the snow, blood, and flowers. And you have to realize then that maybe Goblin is actually really sad a lot, because it's not like flowers blooming out of season is a regular occurrence.
Well, then he gets chewed out by DeokHwa, and that was always... I love that scene, because DeokHwa just starts throwing the newspapers at him. He's like, just say you were drunk, and you don't remember.
So we find out that Reaper can control whether or not people can view him via his hat. He and Sunny are kind of going the rounds because he has yet to call her back, and she is beside herself. She's very beautiful, very eligible bachelorette, and so for her to be essentially stood up like this is
blatantly
very unusual for her. But it's really just Reaper having no idea how to navigate, like, pursuing a woman.
Mm-hmm. Which we see, he, as the episodes go on, he is horrible. It gets worse and worse and worse.
Way. But it's only sweet because we know what's happening. But if that were you, if that were like happening to you, it would be infuriating.
Yep, relatable completely. Then you just, at that point, cut him off. She's too nice.
So at school, EunTak is saved by some of her ghosty friends. And as she's thanking them outside of the school, we see Goblin pull up and offer to drive her home. And she asks, or they decide to go for a meal again. And he opens the car door for her, and they're in Quebec. And they share this really elegant-looking meal. They have a good conversation. He talks about how you couldn't be sad for 1,000 years. It's just not realistic. And she says, well, I think if it were about a lost lover, you could be sad for even longer.
Have a sad love.
Yes. So they go for a walk after their lunch, and we find out that Goblin can fly if he wants to. And he's kind of showing off some of his other powers, which include forming the Goblin sword out of water. And they have this really cute little interaction with each other. And then finally, EunTak asks if she can go run an errand and if he'll wait there for her. And she goes and writes a letter, seals it, delivers it at Goblin's hotel. We don't know to who or what this letter is actually about. But as she's returning, Goblin is reading this book of poems that she had left with him to keep him occupied. And it's basically about how you can try to avoid this love, but it's just going to pull you into its orbit, and that's going to be what holds you to the ground instead of, like, gravity.
Right.
As he watches her walk back across the crosswalk, he sees that every time she steps on a yellow stripe, it's actually turning red. Mm-hmm. And she's like, did you do that? And he goes, no. And so we're getting this idea of her more as the mythical than the human. which is kind of exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads us into episode 5. Kim's Unhinged Theories.
Oh, yes. Our newest segment is Kim's Unhinged Theories, and I love them because I told her I will sit here and I'll smile at you no matter what you say, so that way you don't know what's true or not.
So if any of you play poker, you can tell me in the comments if Ashley's lying or not. You can watch her tells. Exposed. Okay. So I have no idea if any of these are actually right or wrong. I actually asked Ashley in the car earlier. I was like, so have I actually been right about any of these?
I had to tell her yes.
Yeah.
There
So
are
I'm
some
excited to
that
see
she's
which
been in.
ones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Here we go. Let's hear them.
Don't spoil anything for me. Okay, here we go. So I said in episode 1, part 2, that EunTak is orphaned, but we don't technically know if that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least we don't know for sure what happened to her father. So I'm wondering if he gets yanked into the world of the mythical at some point. Her face.
And so you just have to smile and just...
Okay.
I just sit here, and granted, if video works this time, you'll see it. But I usually just do this and smile at her.
Well, I'm usually not looking at you this much because we've been on the couch, and so I'm kind of like angled.
There's also this
away.
new dynamic completely. Yeah.
Okay, here, this is less of a theory and more of just like a interesting fact research observation. So, mythlock.com.
I love the research that she puts into this. It's just fun.
I went to science camp in elementary school. That's all you need to know about me. So there are several types of goblins, and several types of categories of goblins with various appearances and agendas. So the Cham Dokebi, so Dokebi is the name for goblin in Korean, right? So Cham Dokebi are mischievous. Ke Dokebi are evil. Kim Sobang Dokebi are considered to be dumb farmers.
Okay.
I guess we live in the world of the Kim Sobang.
Yep, I know a couple of them.
The not Dokebi are the only ones to appear in daylight. I didn't know that this was a thing. Maybe this isn't part of the goblin lore.
Okay.
Or that's not canon to this universe.
Mm-hmm.
Kote Dokebi are skilled warriors with weapons, which we know of a particularly skilled warrior.
Yes, we do.
Kakshi and Chongak Dokebi are attractive looking to humans.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's a few goblins that I've met in my life.
Well, I was just saying, I mean, we know one extremely attractive woman that owns a chicken shop. So, Winen Dokebi, I think. It's romanized, so I'm not sure the pronunciation. Winen Dokebi have one eye.
Okay.
And Tari Dokebi have one leg and are the most fond of wrestling.
All right.
So those last two are a bit not in context.
At all?
No.
But interesting.
Okay, and this is the one I was most excited about.
Okay.
So I looked up how to pronounce EunTak because I was worried I've been saying it incorrectly. But I noticed that the literal translation for her name, which doesn't include like the Chinese hanja, but it means silver thread.
Ooh, that's cool.
In certain circles, you would associate a silver thread as the thing that tethers the higher self to the physical self. Mm-hmm. And the place that we get this idea from is actually from the Bible. So in Ecclesiastes 12:5-7, it says, "When men are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags himself along and desire no longer is stirred, then man goes to his eternal home and mourners go about the streets. Remember him before the silver cord is severed or the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring or the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from and the spirit returns to God who gave it."
Ooh.
So,
interesting.
Just saying.
Cool.
I don't know if this means that EunTak has to, like, two.
Kim's just like, what do I do with this?
Throw me a bone here. I just was super excited when I saw that was.
Yeah, that's
her
really
name
interesting.
Is Silver Thread. Yeah. And we just talked about this last time with her private life, how she calls him Namungi
Right.
And instead of Nam Ungi, which is silver, she calls him Nam Gumgi.
Which is gold.
Because he won the silver, but he wanted gold.
Right. Right.
So, all right. Episode 5. Okay, you're going to have to hold my hand through this because my notes did not do a nice thing.
Yeah, we had, it was a tragedy. There were the brink of tears.
Yeah.
We start exactly where we left off.
Yes.
For episode 5. And I think for the viewer, you are also realizing with Goblin as he is watching EunTak, like, come towards him of he's going to fall for her. As his first love, he's going to fall, and him staying, and she doesn't know the severity of what it means to pull out that sword. Like, he's going, well, you're gonna make me want to stay.
Yep. Which was one of my guesses, episode 1.
That's true. So they're back in Korea, and he's driving her back, and he just has in a completely different mood because she asked him when she ran up to him, like, are you mad? Like, are you mad at me? Because he just has, like, this look on his face, and it's him having these realizations. And
he's spent the last millennia thinking, I need to find this person. I need to find this person. Not thinking that he was going to fall in love with this person and not want to leave her behind. I mean, that would be infuriating.
And so he's not actually mad. We know this as the viewer. Like, we know he's not mad at her. Mm-hmm. If he's mad, it's the situation that he's now finding himself stuck.
Rock in a hard place.
Right. And so he's driving her home, and she tells him, she's just trying to be polite at this point because she can tell he's in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And she's like, you could drop me off over here. And he's like, okay, if that's what you want. And drops her off. And she's like,
you were supposed to say no, it's okay.
Okay, I guess I'm walking back to the hotel now.
Yeah.
And Goblin's just trying to figure out what he's supposed to do now. So he's, back in his room, and he's like having flashbacks of, what they just experienced together, of, the romantic atmosphere that Quebec has been providing them since the beginning. And then he's also, having a flashback to when he got, stabbed, and he's having a moment of pain again. And it's almost like when he has heartbreak, he just feels the sword being stabbed through him again. Is kind of how I've been seeing it. How could you not you know what it feels like to be stabbed.
Well, and I feel like it's just kind of, for me, it seems like when he has a moment of longing for wanting to stay is when the pain of the sword kind of shocks him back to reality, where he's like, I can't choose to stay because it's so painful to live this life. So it's like he can't be happy with this burden of staying alive, even though he's finding these fleeting moments of joy.
Right.
But now he can't be happy that he has to leave because he's found somebody that cares about.
Right. It's just
It's rude.
It's really awful. It's very rude. So
good writing.
is walking up to the hotel, and she has her headphones in, and she's like listening either to a podcast, radio show.
Probably the KDrama Show.
All these years later. And she keeps having it cut out on her. And we realize that there is a ghostie messing with the interference. And
I like how we have this unspoken agreement to
it's
call them
ghostie.
ghosties.
I even have them typed out as ghosties.
Oh, what did I start? Okay.
I'm here for it, though. It kind of lightens it a little bit.
A little bit.
But this ghostie comes up to her and is like, I need a favor.
Yeah.
And she asks, can you please go fill up the refrigerator of my room? Because my mom is still at the funeral, and I don't want her heart to be broken even more seeing that I didn't have food. Pretty much. Like, I wasn't taking care of myself the way that she probably would have wanted me to.
Well, even her whole room was kind of
just
in
chaos.
disarray.
And EunTak is just like, I don't have any money. Like, I don't know how to help you. And then she comes up with a solution. She shows up. She fills the refrigerator. And then she cleans up the room, makes the bed, tidies the books. And later, that young girl's mom, I say young girl, she's probably like college age, But her mom comes in and sees the full fridge and that the room is clean. And, you know, her daughter is just sitting there watching her. And they're both just, it's like a goodbye.
Yeah, closure.
And then we cut to Reaper preparing actually that young woman and making her the tea so that she can be sent off now. And I noticed he had such a sad look on his face. I mean, he's had moments where he just looks sad, like when he's sending off a soul, but like this one, I don't know, he seemed sadder than normal.
Yeah.
And just
probably
almost
thinking
like,
about Sunny.
Well, Sunny, or just even like, this was such a young life. I mean,
I don't
we
know,
don't know
though,
the situation around her death, but he also, maybe he could just be like,
tired of it.
Yeah, like this is just sucky all the time.
I've been trying to figure out if the wind chime means that someone's arrived, they've died, and they need to cross over, or if the wind chime is somebody who's already left the tea house and is crossing over either into oblivion or into, like, the next life.
I don't know.
But they show it
It's several
often.
times, yeah.
So.
And I guess I haven't paid attention enough to when the wind chime hits, if it's
Before or after.
Yeah. Something that we're going to have to pay attention to now. When we see that Sunny is standing on the bridge where they met, and she's annoyed at this point. She's like, what in the heck is wrong with this guy? Like, come on, dude. And we pan back and see that Reaper's actually standing behind her, and she turns around and sees him, and was like, is this a coincidence that we're bumping into each other? Like, are you avoiding me? Why haven't you called me? And Reaper, he's so painful. It's just like, oh, I'll go do that. And he, like, tries to leave so he can call her. And she's like, or, like, we've run into each other, and you can ask me questions. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah. Here's the thing that was weird about this interaction for me is the wide shot that they took of this conversation made it look like Sunny was talking to no one. But we know that he would be visible because he wasn't wearing his hat, and she can obviously see him.
Right.
But at first I was like, that's why I was confused about whether or not the hat was actually the mechanic for making him visible to people or not, because of that camera shot looking
funky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think it kind of shows, like, that they're not on the same plane of reality.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so.
Not at all. But yeah, Sunny was like, dude. My notes say, bro, come on. Obviously, that's not what Sunny says at all. She's like, okay, well, let's just go for coffee right now. And Reaper just doesn't know what to do. He's just like, okay.
Yeah, she's so forward, and he's so confused about what's happening.
Well, he's never had, like, real conversations before. So even, like, him and Goblin interacting, him and DeokHwa interacting, him and EunTak, like, this is the most non-work related interaction he's probably had in a really, really, really long time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the man has gone through 3 coffees and is nursing his 4th, which I'm like, holy smokes.
And they're big cups.
I would have heart problems if I drank
sent
that
to the
much.
hospital.
Seriously. And you can tell there has been 0 conversation without them saying anything.
She's just sitting and just like...
But then she confirms that. She basically asks if they're only going to drink coffee or if they're just, going to have any kind of conversation at all. And apparently it's been over an hour.
That's a lot of coffee.
That's a lot of coffee. I would have to pee.
Multiple times.
So my guy is so socially stunted that he finally greets her after an hour. And she is just completely at a loss, but I think she's also just kind of charmed by his, like, naivety, because he's clearly not there to just get something from her and leave, which I'm sure she's used to.
Probably,
I think she's just curious about how this guy seems really successful and really attractive.
Put together, even.
Except for in his love life, which doesn't really exist.
Social life.
But he actually gets caught staring at her, and she's like, what are you looking at? He goes, I just can't help but stare whenever you smile. It's like, and then she asks for his name, but we don't actually hear him respond to her. And actually, I was kind of when I realized that we don't know his name either. But back at the house, Goblin and Reaper are each holding something in their hands. And they're just kind of looking like they have the rain cloud over their heads,
Well, we
respectively.
haven't talked about this scene, like,
Yeah.
a while ago. And we're just like, they are a married, like an old married couple.
Yeah.
Just sitting there doing one thing for the other and just...
Not having to talk, not having to make eye contact, just... But both of their fists are smoking, and they each sat down with their holding in front of, the other person. And we realized that Goblin had been boiling an egg for Reaper, and Reaper was cooling down or chilling Goblin's beer. And that's just besties. That's honestly some bestie energy right there.
If we had those types of powers, that's what we would end up doing for each other.
Word.
Because there's a lot of times where it'd be like, hey, I brought this. Okay, cool. I have this. And it's just like...
It works.
It works.
It's perfect. It's like peanut butter and jelly.
Bestie energy.
But then Reaper just kind of in his, Eeyore sort of way. She asked my name, but even I don't know it. She asked me how I was. How do you ask someone who's not alive how they're doing?
So sad.
Sorry, buddy. Clearly you're not doing well.
No, not at all.
But Goblin, he's kind of in his own realm. And it's kind of in a more serious sense because he's, facing his mortality, eventual mortality. Right. And he's sort of having this inner dialogue, going through these different memories he has of EunTak and, thinking that he just has to disappear before he starts to wish any longer that he can live and actually be happy with his life. And he just says, I must disappear. For you, I have made the inevitable decision to leave this world. And at which point Reaper says, by the way, I can hear your voice. I told Ashley this after I'd finished watching episode 6, but I was like, they just don't know how to have a serious moment. Whoever wrote this script clearly has some sort of personal trauma around serious moments, because every single moment is interrupted with comedic relief. We never just get to sit in the heaviness. Well, I had tears streaming down my face during one scene, and then they just the glass shatters,
and you're like,
I
can't cry anymore.
No.
Don't worry, there'll be plenty of moments of sitting in it.
Well, I don't know if I really wanted that after all, but it's okay.
No, you do.
Okay. And this is where my notes died.
Oh, no. Oh, girl.
It was early on.
Yeah, that's only my first page. Okay, so we cut to DeokHwa. And he is looking at a piece of paper, and it is the charges, actually, from EunTak's room. And he's just staring at it, and it's over $1,500. And he goes, how in the world? What is happening? And she walks up, and DeokHwa just, kind of gets, almost like a big brother stance with her, and he's, pulled her aside, and he has, his hands on his hips, almost, shame on you. And he's like, did you drink? And she's like, no. And she's like, well, why is the refrigerator empty? You could have, hidden the cans, at least. I saw they were empty. And she's like, okay, well, that was Goblin's fault. Mm-hmm. He's the one who drank. But everything is gone from the refrigerator. And that is because she had used that to go fill up that other young woman's refrigerator. Mm-hmm. But he's scolding her, and she's like, well, I had a reason. I'm like, I can't tell you what it is, but I'm really, really sorry. Can you please pay for me? I don't have money. And DeokHwa's, I don't have money. I'm trying to get you taken care of so I can get my card back. Come on.
The trust fund baby is on some times of scarcity here.
You're right. He does not have the fund or the trust, honestly, at this point. So, EunTak is in her room. She lights all the candles, and then the doorbell rings. And it's Goblin, and he just walks in, and she's just like, crap, DeokHwa told on me. I'm going to get yelled at. And she's like, I'm really sorry. DeokHwa told me, he told me off. Mm-hmm. And Goblin's just like, well, it's not like he's so innocent to do that. And she, tells him about emptying out the refrigerator and asks, can you please pay for it? And I will pay you back diligently, from the money from my part-time job. And he just continues to stare at her, and she's like, okay, well, then I'm not going to get any help here. Like, I don't know what to expect. And she just goes, you can't run because I will blow out every candle. Again, it's that same wall of candles. And
he just Avatar Airbender.
Yes. He's like, don't make it wishes anymore because I'll be by your side from now on. And she's like, what?
What does that mean?
Okay. And he goes, let's go home. She goes, well, what home? He goes, mine, since you're the Goblin Bride. And she just looks at him and is like, do you love me? And he tells her, if that's what's needed, I will do that.
That was so sad.
And then it just starts pouring outside. It's not just like raining. It is pouring.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, okay, how much do you dislike me that you are this sad? The rain just continues to pour. Well, it's fine. Even if you dislike me, even if you're sad, I'm still going to live in your house. I'm in no position to be picky about whether I get a cold or warm goblin. In the end, all I have to do is take out the sword, right? And I mean, that's kind of fair on her end of knowing nothing. And
well, because he won't communicate to her.
Mm-hmm. Literally, he's being hot and cold. And so she's like, you know what? I don't really have the choice to be picky about this.
Yeah.
And we know from Goblin, he's just like, I'm trying to make this decision to die. Like,
yeah.
And I don't want to now.
Getting closer to you is going to make this so much more difficult.
Right. So they pack her things, they head to the house. And as they're driving, she goes, what's your name? She goes, not because I'm curious, but, we have this kind of weird, vague relationship of we're not married, but, or we're cohabitating, but farther than marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm your bride, I should at least know the name of the person who's supposed to be my husband.
Right.
But there's no, quote, us. And he doesn't really say anything. And she's just rambling on. And he goes, I think it started before you were born, us. And then he tells her, sometimes I go by Shin, other times Shin, and right now I am Shin Jae. But my real name is Kim Shin. And then we get kind of that awkward, again, break the glass of, oh, hey, the light's green. You need to drive now. Like, come on.
So Reaper, as they pull up, is stepping out of the front door with the trash to take out. And he finds out that she's going to live there. And he's just kind of like, uh-huh.
What?
Okay. And then gets really excited after he starts thinking about the fact that
what it means.
Yeah, Goblin has decided to actually die. And he just tells her, I'm rooting for you.
And this is after he's taken the trash bag and just chucked it.
Yeah.
To who knows where, and it lands in a garbage
Into
truck that's driving.
He wishes her well on her work. And she's like, yeah, I'll do the chores. I'll take care of all the chores. So they all move to go in the front door and realize that it is locked.
Because none of them use the door.
They don't have to use doors or cars, as we've established. And so they're like, seriously, none of you know the code to get in the door?
Come on.
And they're just sitting there kind of stumped by it. And then they finally realize, oh, we can just teleport inside and unlock it from the inside.
They had their blonde moment.
They'd been standing there for a hot minute, though. Like, do we break a window? Do we just, like, stiff arm it?
Because
EunTak's strong arm it?
Like, going back and forth.
I'd really like to sit down somewhere. And
come on.
DeokHwa actually had been inside waiting for them to get home. So really they could have knocked.
Or called him.
Or called him for the code, right? He'd have to have it. But they go in and ask what the door code is. And he says it's 1004, which actually is the word for angel. Angel. Angel.
Kim's just going to keep looking at me and saying it over and over.
So, they find a place for EunTak to actually stay, which is like an attic or an extra room for storage.
An extra room that
kind of full of just junk. And they start to discuss the decor choices. And of course, Reaper has one idea that she should have like pastel colors on the walls and like a beautiful hearth or something.
And
yeah.
airy
And then there's Goblin over here who's like, No, it needs to be like
Renaissance
style 19th century wallpaper.
Well, then EunTak just like they're going back and forth, which is funny that these two mythical beings who've been alive for hundreds of years are trying to decide how to decorate a room. I'm sorry, I want no man decorating my room. And Shivan is just like, this is my room. Remember, we can do half and half. We can kind of mix it. She comes up with the perfect solution. And she goes, and in the meantime, though, like, where do I sleep?
Yeah.
Like, where am I supposed to go? And Goblin just says, my room. Which he receives some very funny looks.
From both of them.
Of just like, and he's like, no, you will stay in my room. And then the next thing that we cut to is him standing in Reaper's room holding his pillow. Like, we're going to have a sleepover. I'll stay in the bed. You can go sleep on the couch.
Don't worry, I'll be comfortable.
I'll be fine. And Reaper's like, get out. Leave. Stop it.
You're no longer
go away.
welcome.
But at the same time, EunTak is putting everything in Goblin's room. And she picks up the book that she had let him borrow. And then she picks up this journal and finds the leaf inside. And she sees that obviously he's been writing in this, but she's like, looks at it and she goes, I don't know Chinese characters. Honey, I barely understand Korean characters. Hangul's like, I can write it. Don't ask me to try and pronounce it. It's very,
Yeah.
I get it.
So for people who don't know, Korean was strictly like a spoken language for a really long time. And they actually utilized Chinese characters for their written language, even though it had its own consonant vowel sounds. And then King Sejong came along and was like, nah, not good enough. And he actually came up with a phonetic alphabet. So Chinese is actually character-based. So it's kind of, think of it as like pictures.
Right.
A word, basically you have this character representation of that word, and each stroke can have a different meaning behind it, but then together they mean something as a word. Hangul is phonetic, kind of like the English alphabet is.
Right.
And he based it off of the mouth shapes that you have when you're actually saying the letters.
And the sounds.
So that was kind of a major development in terms of like the documentation and all of those sorts of things. But that is why when you're looking at like family registries, the names have Hanja. They still have the Chinese characters, which identify the different clans. So there's you can have the last name Kim, but you can be from different clans. So
right, there's many.
It still has its own role in modern Korea.
But yeah, she just looks at it and she's like, yeah, I don't know those. But it is actually his journal from a lifetime ago, basically, is what it is. And part of it, he's writing about how he had buried the child that had left with him and grandchild's grandchild. Like, he's gone through a lot of loss of this family line. And he's begging that God will end his life, but knows that it's not going to happen. And we switch back to Goblin and Reaper in Reaper's room. And Goblin's laying there. And I believe Reaper has like his face covered. And he asks Reaper, have you seen God before? And he goes, no. And Goblin says, I have, as a passing butterfly. And he's like, if God gives more than one can, like, if God doesn't give more than one can handle, like, isn't this too much?
Yeah.
Like, haven't you given me beyond what I can actually handle? And, after 900 years, I probably would feel the exact same way. I'm like, I can't handle this anymore. This is too much.
Oh, goodness.
Do we need to back up a little bit so we have some flow of where we're at in our episode?
Come on and back it up.
Oh, I was thinking a different one.
I'm not that that culturally revel up. We're off to a good start. Relevant. Word I was trying to say. Hey, English was not my first language. First 4 months of my life, I spoke Korean.
Did you really?
I mean,
you babbled.
They say that language retention starts in the womb. And actually,
true.
When my parents adopted me, they said that there was a restaurant we were in and somebody spoke Korean.
And you were
like at the next table, and my head just like whipped over to whoever was speaking, I guess. So,
that would make sense. For a kid that
Steel trap this one.
And how's learning Korean been for you since?
I don't want to talk about it.
It's okay. I don't blame you.
안녕하세요. Yo.
Yo.
Okay, so I'm going to take these off first, but to add a little context to our slight breakdown here. It's been about 8 hours. We had to take a small break so that I could go be a mom. And so we were like, do we want to continue today? So if you see bags under our eyes now, it's because it's past our bedtime. Okay, past our time to be in bed, not going to sleep.
It's, we said 9 o'clock was our witching hour.
It's almost 10.
And it's almost 10. And we've already had a few giggle moments. Not as bad as we've had in the past.
Not as bad as episode 4. Let's just put it that way.
We hope that you enjoyed it.
Nothing will ever be episode 4.
I don't know.
Hey, I made it through the recap.
I am very proud.
That was some questionable. Anyway, I don't remember where we were.
If I remember correctly, and we might be wrong, that's why you edit things. EunTak has been brought back to Goblin's house, and she's been brought into her bedroom.
The journal.
And yes, she is staying in Goblin's room because her room isn't ready to go yet.
Yes.
And Goblin is staying with Reaper in his room. Mm-hmm. So that is where we left off. So yeah, Goblin had asked Reaper if he'd ever seen God before, and Reaper tells him no, and Goblin says, well, I have. It was as a passing butterfly. Goblin asks if God gives more than one can handle, isn't this too much?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's 900 years of dealing with this.
Yeah.
I can't say that I would be disagreeing.
It is now the next day.
It is now the next day.
EunTak has woken up, and she remembers that she's actually in Goblin's house instead of like on her own.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of like skips downstairs for breakfast, and she sees Goblin like frying up this beautiful looking steak, which I know you don't like steak.
I do like steak.
Steak
I just
is
have to be
my
in the
jam.
mood for it.
And Reaper has his little meal going, and it all looks very,
very good,
wonderful.
Can they cook for me someday?
Same.
Please.
And she's just super touched by the fact that, you know, they've prepared such a nice meal. And she's like, I was worried because I was moving into a bachelor's house, but here you guys are just like got it together, being so
proud
kind.
of you.
And they're like, this is not for you.
This is my breakfast.
Yeah. You can move along now. But of course they were kind of guilted into sharing their spoils with her, and she just like cleaned up her plate, and she starts to go do the dishes in the kitchen. And she has her back to the boys, and she says that tomorrow, you know, I'm going to start to take care of my own meals, and I'm going to get on top of chores, all of these kinds of things, because you were so nice to take me in. And she turns around to address them.
Well, she even is like, you probably have helpers.
Right.
That come in, take
care of the dishes, things like that, take care of the meals. And she turns around, and they are staring at each other like this with their brows furrowed. And they have these dinner knives just like spinning in the air at each other's faces. And they're like ducking and dodging, trying to get away
having
from
a mock fight, basically.
They were like to decide who's going to do dishes, essentially. And she just goes, so this is what it's like to live with two bachelors.
And this is why you can't get helpers.
It was just like this telekinetic game of chicken. It was interesting.
I feel like, I mean, that's definitely a guy thing, I would have to say.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you and I might be like rock, paper, scissors, or somebody just starts it and the other is cleaning stuff up. Yeah. And just like you.
Dance
the
around
difference
each
between
other.
men and women, I tell you what.
That's why we need each other.
That's right.
But she finishes up the conversation by stating her 3 rules for Goblin and Reaper. So 1, she hopes it doesn't rain often. Since the citizens would be uncomfortable, I hope that you would be happy. She says this to Goblin. 2, if you have any complaints, please say them, saying that you'll take me or you'll make things that could make your... What? Saying that you're going to take me away I hope that there are none of these kinds of threats. And during this rule, they were like wagging their fingers at each other.
Nana, boo-boo.
And then we realized that, yeah, she's definitely talking about Reaper here. And then number 3, if you have something urgent, please call first and don't just appear in front of me, especially not during study or school hours. Here's my phone number. And then she leaves. And then they're looking at the number, and Reaper just goes, is she looking down on us for not having cell phones?
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Completely.
She's a teenager, hello. But it cuts to DeokHwa then in the living room handing them their brand new cell phones. Smartphones, yes.
And it's
an adventure.
He's like, okay, so this is what you do, okay? But DeokHwa's like, okay, so this is how you turn on your phone. And Goblin just goes, I'm good. Explain it to him. And Reaper's just like, almost offended, and then I was like, wait, no, yeah, tell me, because I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what to do. And Reaper's just like, okay, I've seen on dramas that when they're talking, they're looking at each other. And he's like, yeah, we'll get to that. Like, that's
advanced training.
That's not a priority right now. And he's like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Play Store. So Goblin stands up, and he puts on his coat, and he looks at Reaper, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, let's go. And DeokHwa's just like, what are you doing? And
there's no hope for these two.
No, he's like, you said, we need to go to the Play Store. Where is it? Then DeokHwa's just like, I'm out.
I can't help you.
Also me.
But I love that shortly after it just like cuts to them trying to figure out a video chat. And it's Reaper with his phone here. And you just see this red glow because it's against his skin. And Goblin's like, no, you've got to hold it at arm's length, like up to the ceiling.
Well, and then while Reaper has it against his phone, he's like, how come I don't see you? He's just batting the air in front of him. Like,
I mean, to be fair, for 2 mythical creatures that like can teleport places, why wouldn't you think that, just a hologram could?
Yeah.
But still.
Total Star Trek.
Just shows that there's a bit of a difference between being smart and being wise. They're not always synonymous.
Not always. So yes, the Goblin ends up yelling at Reaper. He's like, move it away from your ear. And so Reaper starts to move the phone away. And he's like, I still can't see you. Because it's over by his ear. I'm done with you now.
Hang up. I don't want to talk to you.
Go away. So EunTak has decided to look up Kim Shin. Like, she wants to know who he was. And she finds out that he was a general. And she's kind of just like, oh, okay, so he had a stable job, like finding out just like as much information as she can, but there's really not a lot that's available. And she gets a phone call, and she's at a store at this point, and we see Goblin walk in, and he's come in, and he's going to help her like get the stuff that she needs for her room of, lamps, desk, whatever it is. And as they're walking by, they pass a stand that has the version that Korea has at this point for what a goblin looks like. And it's a little goblin plush, and he has a buckwheat hoodie that when he has his hood up, he's pretending that he's not Goblin anymore. And Goblin's just like,
oddly specific.
What? Okay. That's like the first thing that goes in the cart, because he's intrigued by it, but she's also like, no, like, I need to have a Goblin plush. Like,
it reminds me of you whenever you see something like on eBay for that's BTS related, you're like, nope, gotta have it.
We don't need to talk about my purchase history.
But I benefit from it because I get to see the cute things that my husband would never let me buy.
I'll just have to get something for you then. It's fine. But so yeah, they end up at the register, and they have a whole cartload full of things. And while they're walking up, Goblin's like, is there anything else that you need? And she goes, well, no, because it's nothing but luggage when I decide to leave. And he's like, why would you leave? And she's like, who knows? Stuff could happen. I could decide to leave. And he goes, well, who said I was going to let you keep all of this? And she's just like, rude.
Touché.
But okay. And I love when they're at the register and they're putting stuff on the desk. I don't remember what it was that was in the basket. I don't know if it's like,
I don't know either,
little towels or something. And she just puts it up by the register, and he takes and throws it back in the basket. And it's just like this game. And I'm like, you know what? Same.
I literally played that game with my toddler yesterday at the grocery store. He put Wagyu beef in the cart, and I was like, buddy, no.
Mommy can't afford this.
We're not on a Wagyu budget. Sorry, kid. Ground beef, 80%.
Wagyu taste ground beef budget.
It's going to be a t-shirt sometime.
Yes. I'm sure it probably is.
It probably is, but, it could be branded Kdrama Show. Also, dropping in our merch shop 10 years from never.
10 years from never. That's going to have to be a shirt, too.
10 years from never.
So, Reaper is now working on paperwork. It's like the death certificate almost of like, okay, I've collected the soul. And so he's, at the bottom, he signs Grim Reaper. And he's thinking back to when he was last with Sunny and she asks what his name is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, their last conversation, right after she'd asked him, what's your name? He just got up and left because he's like, I don't have an answer. Like, I don't know what to say. And she's ended up following him out and she was like, what is your deal? And his response is, can I have the receipt that you took for a refill?
My boss is strict about
my
receipts.
company's really strict about it. And he's just like coming back to that. And he ends up picking up his phone and he struggles so hard, but he figures it out and he gets Sunny's name in as a contact on his phone.
Well, it's hard because it's basically like the T9 version of the keyboard. So like you have the computer keyboards you use, which every letter is fleshed out for you.
Right.
In like T9, I mean, if you're old like us.
Dating ourselves again today.
You could have the version where you like click, 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 click to get to the letter in the order that they're on the button. Or it had predictive text where you would just push the button once and you would keep pushing through buttons and it would guess what word you wanted.
Right.
And so it was some version of that. I've tried to use that keyboard because in Hangul grammar, obviously, it has to be consonant, vowel, consonant, or consonant, vowel. And so I'm guessing that that's part of the logic there. But I tried it once and I was like, yeah, no.
I like the full-on
I can
everything.
barely type on
the English keyboard.
The full keyboard. It's a disaster.
Ugh. Yes.
Advanced techniques. But he's trying to enter her name into his phone, and it's quite a heroic effort. And he ends up not even really. It's like spaced out weird because he can't get the letters to sit next to each other right. And he puts her in the phone as Sunny, not Sunhee.
Which is very cute. I'm just like, yeah, I remember her name. It was very valiant effort.
We're very literal in the mind of Reaper.
Yes, we are. Goblin and EunTak get home, and he tells her, you need to go to your room. And she goes up there, and it's a whole different room now. It's all decorated and painted, and there's, a desk and table, and her bed's made.
It's her first real Cinderella makeover at this stage of the story.
Well, and it's not childish, but it's not like...
It's youthful.
Yeah, it's not too mature. It's very youthful, and it's just like, she's like, yay,
so
this
excited.
Is mine. Goblin suddenly appears in her room, behind the door, and he's like pushing the door out of the way, and he goes, like, what do you think? Okay, like, you can't put nails in the wall, and you need to walk with your heels up because your room is above mine. And I'm gonna be able to hear you if you have lead feet. And it doesn't matter.
I love, though, that in, like, part of the decor, it's just candles everywhere. Where he's
just hanging from little shelves.
Yeah, or from, like, chains from the ceiling, like, on these, like, suspended shelves. Basically his way of saying, like, if you need me, call.
No matter where you are. But it doesn't matter because he hears everything that she does anyway. And he's like, oh, she's walking from here to here. She's picked up the plant. It needs to be facing south. Oh, she put it in a good spot. Like,
okay, so was it him hearing her or was it his omniscience?
I don't know.
I thought it was his omniscience.
I think it's him hearing her, though, because of, like, if her room is above his.
Yeah.
But she ends up with a door or a sign on her door that says, "One lady is studying because she is a senior." I'm sorry. School must be so hard in Korea. Like, school can be hard in America. There is different level stuff that they are learning that I'm like, no wonder all you do is sit there and stare at cards and
you go to school
memorize
all day and then you
Go home.
No, you go to study school afterwards for however many hours if your parents can afford it. And then you go home.
and study some more.
Yeah. And you're talking like 12-hour days from the time you leave your house to the time you get home. And then you go home and study, and then you sleep a couple hours, and then you start over.
And that's if you don't have a extracurricular.
Essentially, it's so competitive because if you do a fall off the bandwagon, SOL.
Yeah,
Sorry, you weren't good enough. You didn't make the cut. We're gonna save the spot for someone who deserved it.
Which makes me sad because school is not life,
No,
and it
shouldn't be.
shouldn't be, right?
But
So many better
it's
things
just
to do.
a different cultural value. I mean, what it comes down to. Their pride is in their children and their successes. So I mean, I get that to an extent, but if you think it would bring your family more honor to not be here than to have a second-rate job, you matter.
The most. So my parents are like, "No, you don't need to go to college. Figure out what you like." And I'm like,
Dude, I tried 3 times.
"Thanks, Mom and Dad." Hey, I did too.
Reaper knocks on her door shortly after she's hung the sign. And he says, "I need help with a name." And so they're downstairs and they're having this talk. He's on a couch across from her. She's looking at him and her hands are like folded in her lap. She's like, "This is how it all ends."
Like, do you really need to call my name right now?
Well, she says, "Are you referring to how the Reaper calls your name 3 times and then you die? I'm married now. I'm not who I used to be. I have a family. I need to follow my husband's name. So technically my name is not EunTak anymore."
Don't know who that is.
Oh, gotcha. You don't know my name. I can't say it. But he's just deadpan tells her, "I need a name that women like." And she's so confused. But she's like, "Okay, we'll flow with this because he's not trying to kill me."
We're gonna keep rolling, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "I don't have a name." So she kind of asks for his thoughts, and he offers up Hyokjun Min, which apparently doesn't roll off the tongue in Korean.
We wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know any better. I'll have to ask some of my friends if they can tell me why that was so cringy. But she says there are 3 names that women like: Hyunbin, Wonbin, Kim Woo-bin. The bins.
The bins.
And I looked this up because I was like,
Please do, because you're our research person.
Unofficially, officially, I don't know.
Right.
But I was like, I don't really understand this reference. So I thought that maybe it was like a cultural joke or something. And I had found some places that talked about like the 3 kings of K-dramas because these are all actors.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't really find anything definitive, but Kim Woo-bin, the last one she says, is, what's his name? From The Heirs. He's the second lead.
Okay.
And also from The Black Knight. I love him.
Oh, yeah, I liked him in The Black Knight. Is he the main guy in Black Knight? Okay, yeah, he was really, really good.
He was really good.
I watched Black Knight in
surprised.
one night.
Well, and you go from kind of like being like, "Oh, you're such a schmuck" in The Heirs to like,
"Okay, dude, I got you."
So he was asked about this reference to him in an interview, and he said, "I was really surprised. I sent a text to Kim Un-suk right away, like, wow, it was really fun, and for my name to be included on top of that, I wrote Hwaiting to Kim Un-suk, since my name came up, and I said, thank you very much." And Kim Un-suk said, "By Mimyo" in return. And Kim Un-suk actually wrote Goblin and The Heirs. So... Which we talked
makes
about.
sense, right? Yeah.
So he was just like, "Thank you for mentioning me in your drama."
I
thought
appreciate
that was
that.
cute.
That is cute.
So, there we go.
Well, and context. When Reaper's like, sold. I can pick one of these 3 and I am good to go.
You clearly know what you're talking about. You're young, you're hip, you're into the cultural scene.
She's 19. Of course she's going to go for her celebrity crushes.
That'd be like, hey, you should pick the name Ryan Reynolds.
Or Ryan Gosling.
Or Ryan Gosling. And where it's obviously a celebrity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Blatantly.
But in the car the next day, DeokHwa and EunTak are riding to school together. And he's like, is he really going to use one of those names?
Like, why did you pick those ones?
And they kind of get to talking about names. And she's like, is that really your name? And he goes, yeah, I'm not showing up in any Google searches anytime soon.
Or I will always be second.
Yeah.
Because his name is after a singer from like, because that's the reference in Goblin actually, because he's like, why was my mom or whoever his grandpa or whatever so obsessed with, I don't remember the last name.
I started to look this up, and that's when I had things spoiled for me, so I had to ditch.
Oh.
So
yes, DeokHwa his name is after like a singer.
Okay. I'm glad you knew.
And so he was just like, yeah, I'm always going to be second place compared to him.
Yeah.
When people look my name up, even when I'm 60. Like, he's
so bitter.
Third
generation Chaebol, and I'll always be second. Just give me my card back. But EunTak asked him to pull over at a chicken place, and he pulls up and he's like, is this the chicken place where you work? And she goes, of course, yeah. And he just cringes at this fact, and he's like, oh, crap.
I have made a bad decision.
Mistakes were made. It cuts away to him sharing a meal with the secretary from his grandfather's company. Secretary Kim, that he had told to work on selling the property that he had inherited. And he asked him, please cancel the transaction. And the secretary's like, well, you can't cancel something you never initiated, basically. And
well, and he even tells him, like, I'm not your secretary.
Yeah.
I'm your grandfather's secretary.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop it.
You have no authority here. But as the conversation goes on, he asks if the secretary has anything from his grandfather he wants to give him, and he replies, yes, there is. Since EunTak's exams are coming up, she should take good care of her health. So 1, don't talk to EunTak. 2, remember that silence is golden. 3, be silent. 4, keep the mouth shut. And his only response is, it's not a card.
Well, he asked me to relay this message with the hopes that you could handle these difficult tasks very well.
And as we know for DeokHwa, that is a very difficult task. But he, like, snaps his chopsticks because he's so frustrated at his lack of...
I just want my card back.
I also want his card back.
Same. I sent it to you of what I want from K-dramas. And it's not the oppas from K-dramas. It's the black card that has no limit.
They always whip out. Yeah, exactly.
So EunTak her time is now filled with either being at work, at school, or at home studying. And she gets a knock on her door, and there's a tray that has some snacks on it. And it has a note that says, if you're bored while studying, the sword, please. And then this just becomes like a routine thing of knock on the door, she opens it, there's snacks with another note asking about her, please come pull out the sword. And she ends up returning one of the trays, and Goblin is actually sitting on the counter. And he asks her, other than studying and the sword, and just gotta throw that out there again.
Subtle.
Very. He was like, what is your dream? And this is when we find out that EunTak's dream is to become a radio program director. And she actually studied, like, for the rolling admission, like, studied this. And he was like, why are you so careless, with your thinking? And she's like, I'm not. And this is why I had this thought and why I asked for the $5,000. This is about the amount of money that I need to stay at, like, a sauna, until I become an adult. And this is, what I need to live. This can get me through part of school. Like, I've calculated this out. This is why
This isn't arbitrary.
Right. It wasn't just like, oh, I just want $5,000 to go blow on whatever she wants. And as she finishes this statement, Reaper walks in, and I think he's, like, drinking, like, banana milk or something, and he just looks at Goblin. He's like, you're so cold-hearted. Give her the money. And Goblin just, like, turns to EunTak and he goes, go study, get out of here, like, stop. And Reaper's just like, is your name really Kim Shin? That's a really cool name. And just turns around and walks away.
But he has no emotion. He is Eeyore. He's just like, is your name really Kim Shin?
Yeah, there's zero.
So cool.
Turn around, walk away.
Anyway.
I want to know how hard that was for him to keep his face, like, deadpan in those moments.
I That's why I think that some of those moments where they deadpan and then they bust out laughing and then deadpan again are truly them breaking, and they just wrote it into the scene as, okay,
it's just going to continue to happen at this point.
Yeah, I don't know.
So we're at the chicken shop now, and EunTak, she's like sweeping, and she looks at Sunny and ends up like sitting down at the table, and she's like, "Can I call you Uni? Like, I need to confide in somebody." And Sunny's just like, "There's only one genre for somebody to need to like call me Uni and like confide in." And she just goes, "Are you pregnant?" Wow, sister, that is a whew. What you know about this child, do you really think that this is going to be the direction of the conversation? And she was like, no, just I want to know what your opinion is of getting married early. Mm-hmm. And Sunny's just like, okay, well, how old is this guy? Like 19, 20? And EunTak's just like,
something like that.
A little older. You don't just drop, yeah, he's 939 years old. But Sunny's like, okay, well, what kind of kid is he? And EunTak's just like, well, he's always around books, has a deep taste in music, art, used to work for the country back then. Like, she kind of says, like, the back then, like, don't need to say that super loud because then I'm going to get a lot of questions that I don't know how to answer.
Yeah.
And Sunny's just like, that's not what I mean. Like, how does he treat you? How do you feel? And, you know, what does he do for you? Mm-hmm. And, as it, you know, EunTak just is like, well, he treats me well for now since he needs me. And that's really not
that's not a healthy response.
A healthy response at all.
Or reason for marriage.
No. Well, and Sunny Sunny is so great in this because she goes, well, do you like him? Mm-hmm.
Does he like you?
No. And does he like you? No. She's like, then what's the point of getting married?
She's like, yeah, kind of.
Like, and these are honestly like some really good questions.
Mm-hmm. She's being a good Ani.
Yeah, she is. And she's just like, you know what? Clearly nobody's here for you to have these conversations, but also my own opinion, there's nothing wrong with getting married early
to the right person.
Mm-hmm. But also at the same time, like, it can't just be like,
it can't be a whim. It won't last if it's just
you need to have foundation. And obviously in EunTak and Goblin's case, there is no foundation. It's just
other than fate. Not that they really know that.
They don't know that.
EunTak, she's walking home, kind of thinking over the conversation with Goblin when he had said that he would love her if necessary. And then he says, I love you.
Ugh, what a horrible way to be told I love you.
I know. Out of obligation. But Goblin sees her walk by. While he's sitting inside of a bookshop, he sees her go past the window, and he just, like, sprints, presumably to a door so he can get home. And he's just casually lounging in a chair reading a book, and she walks in and says, hi, and he doesn't even look up at her or respond. And so she leaves to go sit and just fold laundry with Reaper in the other living space and just kind of makes a show. Interaction. Makes a show of saying hi, like, how's it going? And she goes, all the towels were washed and folded by Mr. Reaper. No wonder they felt killer. And he goes, could you please refrain from using that word? I'm loving the BFF energy here.
Oh, yeah. Well, because they actually are getting along. It's not just...
It's not for show.
We have pretending. To because we are in the same house right now. It's like, no, they're just...
enjoying each other's company.
Figuring out,
doing some laundry.
It's fine.
Being roommates. But he hands her the red scarf to fold, and Goblin just kind of, casually strolls through with this painting called The Militia Company of Captain Franz Bonning-Kolk. I'm sure I said that wrong. But he's, like, giving this whole history lesson about it, and neither of them...
It's from the Netherlands, 17th century.
Neither of them look up from their folding, and they just continue their conversation, and he even is, like, doing a dance behind them with the painting. And Reaper just looks at EunTak and asks if this scarf is the same one that she had worn when she was 9 and he had met her first. And she tells Reaper that this was actually the scarf given to her by her mother as a keepsake, and her mom had believed that her ability to see the ghosts was because of the birthmark on her neck, and that by wearing the scarf over it, it would cover it and keep the ghosts from being able to communicate with her and protect her, right? And Goblin actually seems kind of touched by this story, and Reaper just spins and looks at him and says, "Give her the $5,000." And then he looks at him and says, "Stop telling me to confess." Because, we've talked about how Ubek sounds like Kopek, which is, 500, and the way that you say money anyway, 500 versus confess. And so he actually nags EunTak for just having way too many stories to tell every time someone asks her a question.
Why do you have a story for every question? I don't want to ask you anything now.
Just resorted to being petty at this point. And EunTak just ignores him, asks Reaper if he's actually chosen a name yet. And Goblin starts to scold her for not studying. Would you become a PD if you don't? And Reaper goes, "Oh, so you want to be a PD? Yeah. So cool." And EunTak smiles at him, like genuinely smiles at him. And Goblin does not appreciate this
at all.
You do not smile for other men.
Right. But what's funny is then she looks at Reaper and she's like, "What do you think about the name Parkbol Gum? Because Gum is sword." Mm-hmm. And she looks at Goblin as she says this of yeah, don't worry, I have not forgotten about the constant nagging about the sword. Hello. And he was like, "You know what? I've been lenient with you because you can see the sword. I'm not going to be nice anymore, basically." And she finally just is like, "You know what? Whose fault is this? Whose fault is it that I have that mark, that I can see the ghosts?" And Goblin actually picks up her hair because she's in front of him at this point. And he's like, "What? It's pretty." And she's just like, "Why did you just pick up my hair? I didn't give you permission to touch my hair."
"Do not touch me right now. We are arguing."
"I'm having a fight." And she was like, "There must be a reason that you got stabbed with the sword because people get stabbed for a reason." 19-year-olds, y'all, they are vicious.
They are ruthless. I love it. He kind of deserved it. Not kind of. He deserved it.
He was being
He's
pretty
been
horrible.
In a basket case. But then he goes, "How could you poke where it hurts? Are you a psychopath?" And she goes, "Give me a boyfriend. My wish hasn't come true." And he goes, "Yes, it has." And she goes, "Well, where is he? Where is he?" And he goes, "Here, right in front of you. Me. Me." And they just stop. And here's Reaper.
Just watching this interaction, that was my favorite part because it's just
he's not, at first I was like, he's leaning back because he's invested, but he was like,
really?
Mom and Dad are fighting again.
Yes. Yes. I'll have to find the meme for you and send it to you. And it was when your single friend has to watch, the single friend has to watch the couple fight. And it's,
yes. Love it.
You're just
But the two, after realizing what had just happened, have no response for each other. And they just simply sprint off in different directions. And then Reaper just sits there and then rage flips the basket of towels. Because honestly, same. I would have done the same thing. But I also love that they referenced Park Bo-gum.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of my favorite actors. He was in Record of Youth and then Encounter, which is that other drama I told you about that has the age difference in it.
Right.
But
he's also in one, I believe it's called Remember Me or I Remember You. And the main guy is the guy from Doom at Your Service or Cafe Minim Dang. He's one of the main guys. Okay. And
so he's not the lead. Park Bo-gum isn't the lead.
No. It's a second or third lead.
Okay.
But so that the guy from Minim Dang, he comes from America. He was born in Korea and then goes to America after his dad gets killed. Mm. And then he studies with the FBI and he becomes a criminal profiler.
Oh, okay.
And he comes back to Korea to help this detective and her team start solving all of these crimes.
Yeah.
And Park Bo-gum is also in it and he's a lawyer. And that was the first time that I had ever watched him act and I was like,
"You're so good."
Oh my gosh.
He's so
good. And his character, you don't know if he's bad or if he's good.
Oh.
And I just remember watching it being I don't care what you are.
And that's totally
so good.
I feel like he totally dialed that in Record of Youth because that's the character he plays in that drama too.
Okay, I need to watch this now.
Wait, you've never seen Record of Youth?
No, it's on my list, but I have so many that I watch.
It is good.
Okay.
It's one of my favorites. Encounter, if you liked chocolate, you will like Encounter.
I haven't seen chocolate.
Okay, well, if
I
your
need to watch both of them.
Sister and brother-in-law liked chocolate, they will like Encounter.
This is true.
It's good. It's really good. It's kind of one of those that makes your heart ache a little bit, but it's a good watch.
Okay. That's totally fine. I'm here for it. Obviously. Okay, where were we?
Goblin and EunTak.
Oh, okay. So yes, EunTak gets to her room and she's asking herself, kind of like, if you've ever had those conversations where you're talking to yourself of like, can you believe that he really just said that? Like, you're trying to like
Process
everything that has just happened. She was just like, did he really just like, does he like me? This is outrageous. And Goblin at the same time is in his room and he's going, how could I have had a slip of the tongue for the first time in 900 years?
I love, though, that they're both so indignant, but also secretly pleased that this confession finally happened.
Well, and because then Goblin is even like, well, technically, it's husband, not boyfriend. Then he's like, do I need to go make this correction? And we're like, I think you should just stop.
No, I hate it. I hate it.
She will get aged up.
I don't believe you at this point. The only aging that I've seen is at the end of this episode, and it didn't stick. I was so hopeful it was going to stick. But it can't, because he is supposedly not a part of her future. Which I don't currently believe, so. Reaper is busy lamenting his lack of a name.
Oh, see, I have that he's sulking.
Yeah, he is sulking. It's a very good word for it. His whole existence is sulking.
Yes, but this is a different level.
It is, because it's a woman. And he's just sitting there saying, I can't call. Someone without a name can't make a phone call. And he sits at this table literally all day.
Until it's dark.
Repeating the same mantra. Someone without a name can't make a phone call. Just staring at her phone number on the table until DeokHwa and Goblin show up. And he's still holding the phone number, and they comment just like on his state of pathetic.
Yeah, that's a great way for it to be put.
But they realize that he has Sunny's number. And we see DeokHwa and Reaper kind of having a side conversation, and then you just hear, and it's connected. And it's Goblin holding the phone, and he just lets it ring until you hear hello, and then it goes up against Reaper's ear. And he smacks it away, and then as the phone is flying through the air, time just stops. It stands still. And behind you see Goblin and DeokHwa that are still just frozen.
Frozen, yeah.
And Reaper steps away. He goes to grab the phone, and while time is still standing still, he starts to rehearse what he should say because, you know, he has this extra time to just think it through. And he tries some more aggressive tactics. Some kind of cheesy tactics.
Go with cheesy.
Cheesy will earn you more brownie points than aggressive.
Don't go with aggressive.
9 times out of 10. But as he's thinking through these options, he's interrupted by Goblin going, the third one, go with the third one. And Reaper spins around and he's like, how are you doing this? And Goblin goes, isn't it fascinating? And then he shoves a dinner roll in DeokHwa's mouth.
And then smacks him in the back of the head and time resumes.
And then he stops it one more time, and then he lets it roll forward.
But and I love that right before all of that, you know, before they've hit the phone and before they've even dialed, DeokHwa is giving Reaper a hard time because he sees the number and he sees the kiss lip, like the lip stain, and he's like, "What? How did she like come about doing this? Like, what did you say?" And he just looks at DeokHwa and he goes, You need to follow me to a place, and it's not a good place.
But then he's like, isn't this where he's like, admit it, you've touched your lips to the paper?
Yes. DeokHwa he just jabs. He pokes them and
no bars held, no holds barred. This is barrage all over again.
Oh no. So he finally, you know, freezes time for the second time. Trying to figure out how to answer the phone.
Yeah. So Reaper runs to his room and probably teleported to talk with Sunny, and she starts to accuse him of having a broken finger. And he just thanks her for her concern. And I think, honestly, a lot of the thing that charms her about him is just his earnestness. Like, he's being genuine. He's not trying to be stupid or silly or sarcastic. He's just like, thank you for thinking about me, but no, that's not what happened. He's
right. Well, and just their conversations, she's like, are you going to ask me how I am?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how have you been? Like, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And so that is, part of that charm of just like, he needs to be taught. This is how you have a conversation with another person.
Exactly. Yep. So she prompts him to ask her on a date. Mm-hmm. And the next day, as he's leaving, he's all dressed up to the nines.
He's looking
sharp. Pretty classy. And he goes, I'm going to walk since it'll seem more human. And then DeokHwa, who had joined him, out the front door, says, yeah, walking all the way to Incheon is not human. And he goes, right. And so they get in the car and they take off. But EunTak and Goblin are now swimming in awkward.
Oh, that is the best way to put that. An embarrassment, even, of just like, crap, that was said now. And
now it's out there. It's just floating, waiting for someone to, like, acknowledge.
Well, and EunTak even, like, she had grabbed a bottle of water, and she just was like, I was startled by you suddenly being there. Like, I got to go to work now. Like, and as she leaves, Goblin calls her name again, and they actually admit to each other, like, no, this is now awkward.
Yeah.
Like, this is what it is. And so she goes, well, should I naturally bring up that I'm hungry? And he goes, well, should I naturally say, do you want beef? Like, going and getting a steak is clearly their thing that they go and do. And she's like, okay, I'll get my coat. You grab yours. And Goblin takes her back to Canada. And they go and are being seated. They walk through and the waiter's like, welcome to Quebec. And as this is happening, Goblin has a flash of what seems to be a potential future. Mm-hmm. Because he sees EunTak at this restaurant. She's older. I mean, her hair is different. She's on the phone and she's talking about, this is my first time abroad. Alone. I haven't gotten lost so far. I've been eating my meals. Mm-hmm. Like, and this on the other end, you hear this voice being like, well, I can't believe you've left to travel at 29. Like, I didn't even leave my house at 29.
For doctor's appointments or anything.
Right. And she was like, well, I met this man. We're having dinner. He's a CEO. And at this point, Goblin is sitting in front of, this 29-year-old version of EunTak. And he's realizing that he's not there because she's about to have dinner with some CEO. And, like, she hangs up the phone and turns to be like, I'm over here. And he's sitting there and he just, like, realizes I've returned to nothing at this point. And, like, in the end, that was the decision that I made.
Well, he says, at the age of 29, you're still shining, but I'm not by your side. My life of eternity has finally come to an end. In the time after my death, you're still here. You've forgotten me and your life is perfectly complete with me gone. I have to disappear to make you smile. This is the decision I have to make. I have to end my life.
And then we just come back to present day and he just has tears just rolling down his face. And then now is 19-year-old EunTak and she's just like staring at him like, you okay?
Where's the beef?
Like, we're going to order steak now? End of episode.
I did not like the emotions I was feeling at the end of this episode.
Fair. Completely fair.
Okay, so quick theories.
The unhinged theories.
My unhinged theories. I almost wondered if DeokHwa might have been the CEO since his grandfather is a CEO. Mm-hmm. And, if he steps into that role. But it kind of didn't seem necessarily that way since she acted like she didn't know him. Mm-hmm. Also, I hate some of the little plot spoilers at the end of the episodes. Like when they do the preview of the next episode.
You can't finish the whole episode out when you watch it.
I know. I've started to figure that out, that I just need to click off of the
for your own
episode. Sanity. But that was the only unhinged theory I had for this go around. But did you have character of the hour?
Reaper. Poor guy. I think I like him in this episode because he is trying to figure out how to communicate with Sunny.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really bad at it, but he's trying.
Yeah.
You know,
even if it kills him.
Yeah.
And it might.
But even, you know, his willingness to get along with EunTak and her moving in and just being like, I'm on your team. I support you. Or, you know, when she comes in, sits down and they're folding the towels and, you know, when he learns about what her dreams are, he's like, no, that's really cool. Like, good for you. But then I also just love his... he's hilarious. I love his deadpan in this episode.
So good.
It's very... And I love when he tries to video chat with the phone on his ear.
So much of this episode felt like, so in the other episodes it felt like they were building the character up, and this episode felt like they were hitting their stride with that chemistry, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like they were very comfortable with the dynamic between Goblin and Reaper, and EunTak kind of stuck in the middle of it.
Right.
But then Reaper and EunTak now have
a
their own dynamic, which I love. And I love that it's not like I also have feelings for her. I'm trying to take her away from you. Even though that's how Goblin is reading it. That's on Goblin.
Right.
But Reaper's just like, we're cohabitating. I'm not going to...
Also, she's helping me fold the laundry. You don't do that. Like...
Yeah, we'll make small talk. It'll be fine. It doesn't need to be a thing.
Right. Who's yours?
I think mine is probably Sunny. Just because she's asking the questions that I've been screaming at EunTak this entire time.
True.
Like, what the heck are you doing, lady? You don't even know this guy, but you're going to get married to him. Yeah, totally normal. But I love that she kind of makes her take pause and be like, yeah, not a super normal situation.
Like, why do it?
Yeah. If you really don't like each other, don't get married.
Common sense
Fate
would
or no fate.
True.
But Reaper would be a close second.
Well, and even just Sunny's willingness to help Reaper figure out how to have a conversation.
Oh, she has given him so many second chances.
She's just telling him what to do, and because he has zero direction. Yeah.
And not in a romantic sense.
No, it is, okay, we're going to go this way now. Come on, hey, look how pretty that is. Yeah.
This. Nah. That was not rehearsed.
Not at all. We just know.
Final thoughts.
This is a more fun episode, I think,
yeah.
You know, there's a lot more teasing.
Kind of past the personal tragedy of EunTak's life, I think.
Right. It just is more fun, and, I mean, we have fun moments with every character. I mean, with DeokHwa harassing, you know,
yes,
Reaper, or even just being like, when realizing, I mean, even he's like almost that big brother moment with her of just like, dude, why did you spend all that money?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Or I love his moments with Secretary Kim, and he's like, do you have something for me? And he's like, be silent. Silence is golden. Don't talk.
He reminds me of that kid in school that had a little bit of personal trauma that he deflects with humor. And is actually super, super aware of their own emotions, but doesn't want to burden anybody else with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And just deflects.
But then the fun moments with, EunTak and Goblin at the store, and just, you know, filling up the cart with random things for her room. Or even Goblin and Reaper, like, okay, so this is how we're going to decorate her room. Or the chicken fighting like with the knives and like
the gay couple that they are. Sorry, hun, I can't get married to the Goblin bride because I already have a Reaper bride.
Yes.
Maybe he's the Goblin bride.
Ooh, plot twist. What are your final thoughts?
Having already seen episode 6, I know that this was just the build up to the heartbreak of the next episode.
Oh no!
Because when I tell you, I was like crying my eyes. It's embarrassing.
No, not at all.
It's so embarrassing.
Only reason I didn't is because I've seen it enough times.
It was like the pre-comic relief. Where they're disarming the audience just a little bit so that they can crush your spirit in the next episode.
Make you want to die.
And I still haven't seen episode 7 yet, so I am enjoying this series a lot more. Still waiting for them to age her up. I'm excited to see how it resolves. I know I've accidentally spoiled a couple of things just in my research.
So sad.
People should really put spoiler alerts on their stuff. We should probably put spoiler alerts on our stuff.
We should.
I never thought about that till just now. But this is a spoilers-filled review.
Completely. Every single episode.
Every single detail of the episode is going to be reviewed by us. So if you don't want to hear that,
we are probably not the
go
show
watch the
for
episode
you.
and come back later. I think that we will probably do a live review of a particular episode that Ashley picks with the most plot twists and turns, so that you can see me baby rage about it.
I'm so excited. I even told her what episode it's going to be. So I'm like, okay, you cannot watch this episode.
You're going to have to remind me because you know me.
Yes,
I
will
remember
remind you.
I am Dory.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Literally. We're just going to go have some woman.
Some woman.
Some woman and go.
That wascally woman. We need to bring that energy to every episode.
I know. All right, well, that was episode 5.
Episode 5. We'll be back next time with episode 6.
Bring your Kleenex. Like what you're hearing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new episodes. We'd love to connect with you on our Instagram at The Kdrama Show. For more behind-the-scenes content, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Links are in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on The Kdrama Show with Ashley and Kim, and we'll see you next time.